Dan is from Writing Club. Hi, Dan. Haven't seen you for a couple of years.
How's it going? How's things?
Good. Last time I saw Dan Guy was at National Careers Week 2023.
Yeah, a lifetime ago.
It was a lifetime ago. I feel like those are still the COVID years in a way. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry, we're running a little bit late, but only a couple of minutes over. So,
Absolutely fine.
Dan, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and tell us what you do, and tell us a little bit about Writing Club.
So, yeah, my name's Dan. I'm a senior writer at a London copywriting agency called Writing Club. We're a small agency, there's about 8 or 9 of us, and we do loads of different writing, everything from sort of TV ad scripts all the way through to messaging guides and tone of voice guides for a whole host of companies you might have heard of, including Formula One, EE, British Gas, Pret, yeah, BT, and tons of other clients like
There's some great names there. I mean, what a way to introduce yourself.
that.
Love it. But that is, we've literally just had Carolyn on and she's been talking about how there are so many young people out there that don't know what you can do with writing, but so
Mhm.
many of them do writing at, school or uni, whatever it is. So tell us a bit more about what it's like, I guess, working in a collective as well of copywriters and tell us about how you got in. There's so many questions.
Yeah.
So with whichever one you want to start with.
So yeah, to go back to the beginning, I always enjoyed English at school. I was quite a good writer. My teachers told me I was a good writer. But coming from a state school in the Midlands, the idea of being a writer and ever making any money out of it was a distant dream. So like most people, I tried football and then I tried joining a band. And yeah, neither of those really worked out. But eventually, after a few years, I was running a music venue in Stoke as the marketing manager. And then one day, one of my friends who I was chatting to over a beer just mentioned about, he said, "Oh, you like writing, don't you? We've got a job going as a content writer at a company called Phones for You that was based in Stoke. Why don't you come and try out for it?" And I had no idea what a content writer was. I didn't realize that people got paid for this stuff. But I went along for the interview, did a writing test, got the job. Um, and yeah, on the Monday morning, they gave me a laptop and said, right, okay, you need to start writing stuff about mobile phones. And still now, 14 years later, I'm still amazed that people hand us over money in order to write about stuff. It's great fun. Yeah.
You obviously do a fantastic job because people keep giving you money.
Well, they do. Yeah. They've kept doing it all this time, so I must be doing something right.
And yeah, so I mean, you went into music and then did a bit of marketing in there. You kind of straddled across a couple of different industries there and then made it into writing. And do you think that that is quite a common journey for a lot of copywriters as well? Like they don't come straight out of education and dive straight into copy.
Yeah, I think there's so many different ways to get into copywriting. There's so many different sort of career paths. We've started working with the University of West of England in the last couple of years, where we did an internship with those guys because they've got a commercial writing aspect. But they're one of the few universities in the UK that kind of offer people an academic way to get into copywriting. Most people come to it through they've usually sort of liked creative writing at school, they've done various jobs, and then they've ended up sort of falling into the industry, which makes it a really exciting place to be, right? Because it's not full of people that have just turned the wheels like a lawyer or an accountant might do. These people come from all different walks of life, and bring a whole load of different skill sets to writing, which makes it really, really good fun and something different every day.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like a very welcoming community as well. It doesn't sound like deeply competitive like a lot of these other kind of creative areas are.
Yeah, it is. There's a wonderful community of copywriters out there online, and in real life as well. I think everybody's very aware that the kind of job we get to do is we're in a very fortunate, privileged position to do it. So we try and stay on top of all the latest trends and try and kind of stay ahead of what's going on in the advertising world to make sure that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. But yeah, it's quite competitive because obviously there's only so many people or there's only so many words that need writing for various brands at any given time. But everyone's really supportive, particularly when you're starting out in the industry. There's a lot of support with junior copywriters out there.
I think also it's very important to establish the like very close connection between copywriting and advertising, because
Mhm.
essentially advertising is either videos or like visuals, or it is words,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is a lot of what you do, isn't it? It's writing copy for ads and, or shaping things to sell to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, I mean, increasingly, obviously, now we live in a digital world, so there's so many different avenues that brands will have to sort of communicate on. But by and large, the sort of 90% of what we do is still writing ad copy to promote products or services. It can be anything from, like I said, just last week we were writing stuff for Formula One about their F175 event at the O2. Or it might be promoting a new product for EE, might be a new phone launch. But yeah, it's really, really closely sort of commercially driven writing that we do.
And what does your portfolio look like? Because you obviously, like I said, you work with a collective kind of thing.
Mm.
And so, would you call it a collective? Or it is an agency, but it's all, everyone's doing copywriting in the agency.
Yeah, we are an agency, but we haven't got the traditional agency structure where you'd have lots of different people doing lots of different things. We're all just writers. So yeah, there's, as you can imagine, a team of 8 people that are just writers is very much a collective. Yeah, heads to the grindstone.
Okay, yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, writing club, it is kind of a club, isn't it?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
that
yeah,
actually does make a lot of sense.
yeah.
So the club, um, so do you guys each have your own individual portfolios, or do you have a collective one, or both? And then how do you update them, I guess, how do you choose what to put in the portfolio when you want to
Mhm.
update it?
So it's a great question. We've got a collective portfolio as a business that obviously we share with prospective clients and with new clients. I've still got my freelance portfolio that's offline at the moment from when I freelanced for about 4 years. So I've got a bunch of stuff that I took offline now because I'm part of Writing Club. But sort of in the background, I think probably all of us kind of any work that we do that we're particularly proud of that we might put to one side that if it ever happened that we were moving on to different agencies or going back to freelancing, we'd be able to update our portfolio with that work. But generally speaking, yeah, it's on the Writing Club website is where we throw all of our favorite work into one place.
That makes sense. And so, what do you think? What's your advice for a young person looking to build a portfolio now? How would they go about, I guess, creating stuff without necessarily being paid
Mhm.
to do it? Because, I guess lots of them won't have clients yet. They're not in
Yes. Yeah.
it. And also, like, how do they know if it's good enough to put in a portfolio?
It's a good question. So there's a couple of different routes you can go down a lot, and I think maybe I kind of eavesdropped on the previous speaker, and they were talking about spec work. So that's something that we always recommend. So find a brand that you really like or a brand that you're really interested in, and just start to create ads or social media copy or website copy for those guys. Build that up as long as you advertise, as long as you show on your portfolio that that's spec work. That's absolutely fine to do, and it's a really fun exercise, right? You get to write for your favorite brands. An alternative to that, and something kind of I did when in my early days of freelancing was to find sort of really small local companies or friends that were kind of doing interesting things and just offer to create copy for them. So it might be throwing together a sort of a text ad if you've got a friend that sort of runs a coffee shop, or you've got someone who's the local bakery around the corner. There's actually a guy called Dave Dye who's a really famous London art director, and if you go to his blog, it's called Stuff from the Loft. About 5 or 6 years ago, he did a really interesting experiment where he went to his local deli, who had a blackboard outside the front, and offered to take that over for 2 weeks to see if his copywriting would improve their sales. So every day he'd go down, and they just obviously they were just a deli, so he'd go down every day with a piece of chalk, and write something really interesting copy on the front, and see how many people actually went in to buy cheese or whatever it was he was promoting.
Oh my
Um,
God.
it did work, yeah. Some of the stuff really didn't work, but it's a really fun experiment, and he detailed it all in his blog. It's so much fun to write about, and then that's really sort of at the coalface of copywriting. That's being able to go really old school and just put words on a blackboard and see what happens. It's really fun way to go about it.
That's exactly it. It's a fun way to go about it. I think sometimes the image of building a portfolio is, oh God, I've got to build this. Like, treat it as an experiment. Go do
Mm.
something fun with it, you know?
Exactly,
Also,
yeah.
that's absolutely got viral potential. You know, if
Yeah,
you
massively.
did post
Mm.
about that on social media, then I'm sure that you would, immediately get recognition and get stuff coming in. Oh, what a great
Absolutely.
take on that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so what is any other advice in the last couple of minutes that we have? Tell
Mm.
me what your other advice is for young people who are looking to get their foot in the door of the writing.
Um, One that I've kind of I would really harp on about is to kind of educate yourself as much on the history of copywriting and advertising as you can. I think there's a real sort of, it's not necessarily a trend, but there's this pervading idea that sort of every year copywriting and advertising starts again from year dot, because this year it's about TikTok, or this year it's about viral advertising, or this year it's about influencers. But the lessons that have been learned over the last 150 years of advertising still hold true today. Those great ads, the great VW ads from the 1960s and the 1950s, are still as relevant in the way that they create and the way that they craft copy as they sort of as they were then. So you can really easily go to your local library and request. There's a great one called the Copywriting Handbook. That's a great one, or just the copybook from the D&AD on online. You can literally just Google great ads, and there is thousands and thousands of different things you can look for. So I would definitely recommend researching that. And then also, I think equally important is to just be as curious as you can. All the best copywriters I've ever met and all of the best creatives I've ever met are the people that are just obsessed with culture, that aren't necessarily down one line, or aren't just into novels, or aren't just into music. They're into everything and are curious constantly about everything. So yeah, just kind of dive into culture as much as you possibly can and as often as you can.
I love that. Two very, very good bits of advice there. Thank you so much. Also, one thing, just because we've had this in the comments or in the questions a lot about how young people are so worried about everything being London centric. The great thing about
Mhm.
copywriting is that it is, done on a computer. It's
Yes.
not done by pen and paper anymore. You don't have to, be physically in an environment for an agency in order to be able to actually do what you do. That is
Yeah, so our agency, although the agency is based in London and our clients in London, I live about an hour away from Manchester. We've got one of the owners lives on a farm in North Wales. One of the other guys lives in Belfast. One of the other writers lives in Brighton. There's only actually two of us that live in London. So yeah, the whole London thing, I think particularly since COVID, it's just not a thing anymore. You might need to go to London for the interview, and you might need to make your way one day a week. And if you're lucky like I am, the agency will pay for you to sort of jump on a train once a week. But yeah, don't let that London centricity stop you.
amazing. What a good note to end on. Dan, thank you so much for your time. Thank you also for running over a little bit longer. Guys, put your questions in. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you. I'm actually going to put you as an attendee now, but I really appreciate you being here for a second time. You'll be back for National Creativity 2026, I'm sure.